Open your old high school chemistry textbook to the very first chapter. You are guaranteed to see a bold, highlighted paragraph crediting an English chemist named John Dalton as the undeniable father of atomic theory. We are heavily conditioned to believe that in the year 1803, Dalton brilliantly discovered that all matter is made of indestructible fundamental building blocks. But I want you to close that textbook for a second, because what if I told you this foundational pillar of Western science is actually hiding a massive historical blind spot? Most people have absolutely no idea that this is the case. When I first started researching the chronological history of particle physics, I was shocked to realize the fundamental concept of the atom was not born in an English laboratory. It was rigorously deduced, mathematically codified, and flawlessly documented over 2,500 years earlier by a brilliant Indian philosopher named Maharishi Kanada. Today, we are going completely beyond the standard Western curriculum to look strictly at the uncompromising logic and the sheer intellectual horsepower of the Vaisheshika Sutras. We will explore how ancient India formulated the world's first true standard model of particle physics without ever using a microscope. To truly appreciate the staggering magnitude of this ancient discovery, you first have to understand the massive intellectual wall early physicists hit regarding the nature of matter. For centuries, the global scientific community was heavily divided by a concept known as continuous matter. The general common sense assumption was that physical objects were perfectly solid all the way down. If you took a block of iron and cut it in half, then cut that half in half again, the classical assumption was that you could theoretically keep cutting it infinitely forever. There was no physical stopping point. But as early chemistry evolved, scientists realized this continuous model was mathematically impossible. They discovered matter was discrete, meaning it was composed of individual countable units. Modern particle physics operates on this exact foundational bedrock. When we use massive electron microscopes and particle accelerators today, we are proving that matter cannot be divided infinitely. You eventually hit a hard biological and physical limit, the fundamental particles. Whether you call them atoms, quarks, or leptons, the absolute rule of the universe is that there is a fundamental basement to physical reality. Everything in the cosmos is built by combining these microscopic, indivisible units in different mathematical ratios, which we consider the ultimate triumph of the modern scientific method. Now I want you to completely remove yourself from the modern era of particle colliders and travel back to ancient India, roughly around the 6th century BCE. Here we find Maharishi Kanada, a scholar of absolute, uncompromising intellect. Modern academic history often tries to unfairly reduce ancient Eastern sages to abstract mystics or religious poets. But when you bypass the cultural noise and read the actual Vaisheshika Sutras, you find a framework that reads exactly like a highly advanced technical manual for theoretical physics. Kanada did not use the English word atom. He formulated the highly precise Sanskrit concept of the Anu. According to the ancient texts, the Anu is the ultimate, indestructible, indivisible building block of all physical matter. Kanada explicitly stated that the Anu cannot be pierced, split, or destroyed by any physical means. It is eternal. But he did not just stop at defining the base particle. With absolute precision, Kanada mapped out exactly how these fundamental particles interact to build the complex physical universe. The Vaisheshika texts state that two Anu combine to form a Dvyanuka, which is the exact ancient equivalent of a diatomic molecule. Then three of these Dvyanuka combine to form a Trianuka, a larger molecular structure possessing enough mass to become visible. The texts explicitly detail that the entire physical universe is constructed from the endless, calculated combinations of these indestructible Anu. This brings us to the absolute most staggering, mind-bending fact of this entire historical timeline. John Dalton had the benefit of modern chemistry, glass beakers, and chemical weights to arrive at his atomic theory. Maharishi Kanada had none of that. He did not possess a scanning, tunneling microscope. He did not have modern laboratory equipment. So how did a man living over 2,500 years ago accurately map the architecture of particle physics? The answer lies in the absolute supreme power of flawless philosophical deduction. Kanada deduced the existence of the atom by solving what we call the paradox of infinite divisibility. I want you to think very carefully about this exact logical argument. Kanada reasoned that if matter was continuous and could actually be divided infinitely without ever stopping, it would create an impossible mathematical paradox. If you take a tiny mustard seed and the massive towering Himalayan mountains and claim that both can be divided infinitely, then you are logically forced to admit that both the seed and the mountain are composed of an infinite number of parts. If they both have an infinite number of parts, then mathematically they must be the exact same size. Since a mustard seed and a mountain are obviously not the same size, the initial assumption must be wrong. Matter cannot be divided infinitely. Therefore, there must be a definitive, indestructible stopping point where matter can no longer be split. Through pure, rigorous logic, Kanada proved the Anu must exist. He basically reverse-engineered the entire physical cosmos using nothing but raw human intellect, establishing a theoretical framework that perfectly mirrors our modern understanding of elementary particles. Furthermore, Kanada was incredibly specific about the actual properties of these fundamental particles. In modern chemistry, we know an oxygen atom behaves completely differently than an atom of gold because they possess different intrinsic properties. Maharishi Kanada explicitly categorized this exact concept millennia ago. The Vaisheshika Sutras clearly state that there are different classes of Anu corresponding to the fundamental elements of earth, water, fire, and air. He documented that the Anu of water possesses completely different inherent characteristics compared to the Anu of fire, which possesses heat and luminosity. The ancient Indian framework completely understood that the endless variety of the physical universe is merely the result of different classes of fundamental particles combining in specific, mathematically distinct arrangements to create complex physical matter. Let us look closely at the sheer scale of this intellectual achievement. We live in an era where we deeply worship modern technology. We blindly assume that true scientific understanding can only be achieved through multi-billion-dollar machines, digital sensors, and complex computer algorithms. But the undeniable brilliance of the Vaisheshika philosophy proves that the human mind, when rigorously trained and heavily disciplined, is the ultimate diagnostic instrument in the universe. Maharishi Kanada did not discover the atom by looking outward through a piece of glass. He discovered the fundamental architecture of physical reality by turning his awareness deeply inward and utilizing the supreme power of rational, objective deduction. He realized that the laws governing the massive visible universe must perfectly reflect the laws governing the smallest, invisible subatomic particles. It is a testament to the uncompromising nature of Vedic observation and rational thought. The next time a traditional academic textbook tries to convince you that the foundational pillars of advanced physics were entirely developed in 18th century Europe, I need you to remember the undeniable logic of the mustard seed and the mountain. Remember that the world's very first standard model of particle physics was explicitly codified by an ancient Indian sage who understood molecular bonding centuries before the Western world even acknowledged that the Earth was round. The true blueprints for understanding atomic theory and the absolute basement of physical reality are not exclusively locked away in modern university archives. They are openly documented, freely available, and perfectly preserved within the majestic, mathematically flawless historical science of Sanatana Dharma. If this deep, uncompromising look into the true history of the logical atom and the profound genius of Maharishi Kanada has fundamentally changed how you view ancient science, I need you to take action right now. The digital algorithms that control what the world sees are explicitly designed to suppress this exact type of heavy, historically accurate scientific synthesis because it directly challenges the established mainstream narrative. We have a shared responsibility to push this undeniable truth into the global digital ecosystem. Smash the like button immediately to force the system to recognize the absolute value of this information. Then, go directly into the comments section and tell me exactly what you think. Does knowing the flawless logic behind the ancient discovery of the Anu change your perspective on modern physics? Does it change how you view the intellectual capacity of our ancestors? I actively read every single comment to see who is truly absorbing this elite knowledge. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel with the notification bell turned on so you do not miss our next deep dive into the architecture of reality. Stay sharp, always question the origins of the history you have been taught, and I will see you in the next one.